All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you.
This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What up, horrorheads, and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Daniel DeBona.
And I'm David Ulloa.
And we are a little bit late here, but we are going to squeeze in one more werewolf movie with our extended month of the werewolf for November as we kind of get into December here. But we had to do this one. We absolutely had to cover An American Werewolf in London. This is one of the quintessential werewolf movies. This is the one that all werewolf transformations will be compared to forever. This movie has got a little bit of everything. Definitely not a movie for everyone, which I believe is something that we're going to get to as we get into this. So let's get it started in a section that we're calling A Different Kind of Animal House. Dave, tell us about what you think about American Werewolf in London, man.
An American Werewolf in London is legitimately, I know I wax poetic about movies all the time, but this is legitimately one of my favorite horror movies of all time. This is one that, going back to the inception of Shiver, we discussed doing. In fact, when we were talking about the very first episode to do, this is one that was thrown out. And we ended up doing The Exorcist as our first episode way back when. But this was a serious contender. And for one reason or another, it's kept getting pushed aside, almost like the original Nightmare on Elm Street. We've never done the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
Fucking wild, you know?
Yeah.
But there's these amazing movies that I think it's just because, like, so many people have said so many things about this movie. What can we add to the conversation? But the thing is that I don't give a fuck. I love this movie, and I want to talk about this movie because this is one of the first horror movies that I remember loving. It's John Landis, so you know you're going to get a quirky sense of humor, and it's very 80s without feeling 80s. It's so weird because it kind of exists in this almost timeless period. If it weren't for, like, the puffer jackets,
right,
you really wouldn't know that this is the 80s, because I think that what Landis did here was create what was then a modern reinterpretation of the classic werewolf movie, and I think that injecting that amount of humor into it was definitely not new, because we talked about the original Wolfman, and it was funny. It was really funny. And I just think that this is, I don't think comedy has evolved since the 80s.
Fair.
And I think that's a good thing, because I don't think we've ever gotten anything funnier than what we were given with the National Lampoon movies. with which goes back to John Landis. So the humor here, the dark humor, is outstanding, man. The horror is horrifying. Like, this is, I think, one of the most legitimately scary movies that has ever been made. And this is peak special effects.
Yeah.
Like, there are definitely movies that people refer to as, like, that's a special effects extravaganza. We always go back to Return of the Living Dead. We go back to, Day of the Dead. This will never be topped as far as transformation scenes go.
Right.
It could be met. I think that The Fly is one of those that meets this level of transformation in a different way, but it does. This will never be surpassed because no one does practical special effects anymore, and when they do, they're not better than this. So there is really something special about this period in horror, the early 80s, that just is magical. And that's what this movie is, man. It's magic.
Yeah, this movie is one that I have seen once or twice before, but it's been a long time. So it was one of those where like I didn't always exactly remember what was going to happen yet. Now, I will say I was ready for the fact that this movie does start off kind of slow. I was ready for that because I did remember that. And I know that's usually one of the biggest things people will complain about with this movie is it is very oddly paced towards the beginning's kind of slow. Then the middle's kind of stop. But man, like when it's going, this movie fucking goes. Like it's so much fun to watch this movie because you're enjoying something different at all times. You're enjoying the comedy. You're enjoying a very sexual sex scene. You know, you're enjoying the horror. Then the comedy's back, and you're always enjoying something a little bit different about this movie. There's something very special about the way that this movie progresses from beginning to end. There's something about the way that it presents the story in a way where you're very committed to finding out what happens to all these characters. You're very interested in kind of knowing what's going to go on next. It creates some of its own mythos. This idea of victims of a werewolf are stuck in limbo and they have to walk the earth forever. And so it does a lot of interesting things there, but more so than anything, exactly what you said, man, this movie does special effects. God damn, the special effects in this movie. Like I said at the top, any and all werewolf transformations from now through eternity will always be compared to this movie. It's inescapable. You cannot get away from how good the transformation is in this. But it's not just the transformation. The transformation's amazing, but it's the wolf himself. It's that use of POV, like a late 70s, early 80s slasher. It's the special effects on the zombies being the wrong word, right? But the undead.
The undead. Yeah.
Yeah, the limboed undead. The special effects on them, watching Jack progress in his decomposition as he's in limbo. You know, that stuff is incredible. So you've got all of that, and like you said, this movie is funny. This movie is funny, and it's funny in a way that feels very natural. It doesn't feel like written jokes. You know, we've discussed Diablo Cody on here before, and Diablo Cody makes fun movies. I laugh my ass off when I watch them, but you watch something that she's written, and it feels like written comedy that is delivered perfectly, which is great. That's what makes a good movie sometimes. That's what makes a great sitcom. The comedy in this movie legitimately feels like there were times when the camera was just turned on and it was like, all right, David, like, let's go. You know, what would you say here if you were just walking, you just got off this truck, you're about to walk through, you know, the fields of this area, and he's like, the sheep shit on my backpack, you know, like, just it sounds like the way that real people have conversations, which is always something that's noticeable when it's there, and you don't always think about how written some stuff sounds. You know, I just in the past couple of weeks finally got around to seeing Deadpool and Wolverine. I laughed constantly. It's very funny. But it is very intentionally funny. It's written to be...
It's comic book. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, it's written like that. This is written like dudes just talk. Well, like he, you know, whenever he's having conversations with his buddy, with the nurse, with the people in the bar, everything that happens, the conversation in this movie just always felt really natural. And I really like that because I enjoy when I can laugh as hard as I did in some of these parts and it felt like it was deserved.
And the brilliance of that all goes back to John Landis. If you've seen any of Landis's movies, and if you like this, you like his other movies. And there's a really good chance that you may not even associate Landis with this movie. You think of you think John Landis, and you probably think Animal House, you think Blues Brothers. You don't immediately think horror, but his connection to horror is pretty deep. So, but going off of that, with the writing, the dialogue, the delivery. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. In a section that we're going to call reimagining a classic, because we're getting into this now, right? The story here, you mentioned the lore, the mythology, that there's things that are added to the classic werewolf mythology here. There's also things that are taken away from the classic werewolf mythology here. So what does the story do for you, Daniel? Does the story work for you? You mentioned pacing also as being something, kind of uneven.
Yeah, so it is kind of oddly paced, but that kind of builds to how frantic this entire movie always is. From the very beginning of this movie, you're in this weird place. You just got dropped off, out in the fields and the moors with these backpackers, and they go into this bar, and you understand exactly how well they feel like a fish out of water. Can we get some hot chocolate, a sandwich, some soup? No, we got beer and spirits, and so you immediately are kind of thrown into that, and then and then all of a sudden brutality, get attacked by the werewolf. Then it pulls back from that for a very long time. Then we start to get the weird fever dreams and the him seeing himself in the hospital bed. And I think that ultimately, when it comes to the pacing of this movie, I think that is going to be why I said at the top, this movie's definitely not for everybody. But I think when you sit back and you look at it as a whole, the entire idea of this movie was that David never really knew what was going to happen next. David really knew where the next turn was going to be. We're given that right away when they just kind of stumble into this village and go to a pub. And I think that the pacing and just how kind of up and down this movie was, it keeps you from being comfortable, which you never, you never get to be blasé about this movie. As soon as things start to settle down, there's some action, or like I said, or there's a sex scene, and this is a sex scene not like one in most horror movies that we do. Like most horror movies, when we talk about a sex scene, we've got like a 15-second hit it and quit it, type thing.
Yeah. Like, here's a boobie, we hit our quota.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like, this is a sex scene. Like, Landis was like, I don't know, ladies might want to watch this,
right. Yeah.
Like,
there's an awful lot of David Naughton in this movie.
Yeah. Oh man, is there? And so then you go from that, then he's a werewolf, then he's running through the zoo naked and stealing balloons from little kids. I mean, and it was in tears. And it's so all over the place.
Yeah.
And it can be very off-putting at first, until you start to think about the fact that this is John Landis. This is what he does. He mixes this stuff up, and you start to realize that you were so busy laughing at this, and then, being kind of turned on by that. And then, like the scene when he's just like walking around the house after she's gone to work, and the soundtrack for this movie also just I mean,
insanely good,
because it's so on the nose that it's ridiculous and perfect. But, he's just walking around listening to the radio, and then just all of the sudden grabs his head and starts screaming. And it's like, oh, shit just hit the fan. Like, I didn't even know it was dark outside, and and as soon as you start to kind of put all that together, you realize that he wanted you to be in a place where you were never fully comfortable. And as soon as you thought you were, he switched it up on you. I think that is all very important to what this movie is. The weirdest part of this movie, and what has been a sticking point now for me for every time I've seen it, and it does go with exactly what I just said is a pro. The ending of this movie is so bizarrely sudden. Like it just happens and it's over. Roll the credits. And that's not a bad thing necessarily. It just always it's not quite sleepaway camp shocking, but at the same time, like it just ends, and you're like, oh, okay, well, kind of wanted to see what the fallout was, but let's go. So I think that there's a lot of really great things here with the way that they tell the story outside of just the story itself, which is also very good. And I'll let you get into that. But the way that the story is told, I think is something that it's very daring to tell a story like that, to expect people to take these jumps, to never explain why he's having dreams of werewolf Nazis murdering his family. Like you never fully get an explanation as to why that's part of being a werewolf, but fuck it, it was scary and brutal. So, let's go. And I do think that that the weird stylistic pacing of this movie is far more a pro than a lot of people are willing to toss it in the con category.
I love that you said all of that about the pacing, because yes, the pacing is uneven. However, I never understand the critique that some people give that a movie's got to be up here the entire time.
Right.
That's not exciting to me. That's not exciting for the same reason that George Romero said that fast zombies are not scary. Where do you go? How do you build tension?
Right.
You can't, because if we're at 11 constantly, there's no chance of building tension, and there's also no payoff. So I really enjoy the more traditional style of pacing a movie, which this falls, I think, firmly in that camp. It is very much, I think, a marriage of classic Universal monster and Hammer horror.
Yeah.
Being that this takes place in England, how could it ignore Hammer? It can't. It's also in color. And immediately when you think classic English horror in color, you're thinking Hammer, right? It does that, but it makes it modern. And it makes it modern in two ways. It ramps up the horror. It ramps up the
you did
the
something
gore.
Did you see that? You did something. If you're watching us live, Dave was just covered in balloons.
So weird. I have no idea why. So all I did was put up two fingers.
Yeah.
It's not doing. Oh my God. What is it working for you?
It's not working for me.
No, you can fuck right off.
This is compelling radio. So it really ramps up the horror.
it ramps up the gore, right?
Yeah.
It ramps up the gore, and it also ramps up the humor. So it goes much more, and it does exactly the same thing that National Lampoon's movies, be it, Animal House or Vacation or, whatever. It does exactly the same thing that it did for comedy, except for horror. It makes everything more and pays homage to where it's getting its inspiration from.
Right.
And I think that that's really what works about this movie. You can appreciate this movie without having ever seen another werewolf movie. You can have never seen a Universal monster movie, never seen a Hammer horror movie, and still watch this and say, man, that was awesome. But if you are a fan of those things, then you watch this and you're like, holy shit, Landis recreated what Universal did in the 40s with the Wolfman, in the 30s with Werewolf of London, and what Hammer did in the 60s and the 70s. Hammer did their own werewolf movie. It's called Curse of the Werewolf, starring Oliver Reed. Fantastic. Really great movie. I would say it's on par with Wolfman. But this does something that neither Wolfman nor Curse of the Werewolf can do for me. And it's entertain me 100% of the time. Because whether it's, and it does it by doing what those two movies do, but better.
Right.
Yes, there are occasions where the pacing slows down, but it's always necessary because we are dropped in the middle of a story, which Landis always does with his movies, and he does it amazingly. He's not giving you all the backstory right up front. No, you're going to find this out one way or another. Maybe you're not going to find out. You're just being dropped into the middle of a situation. What's going on in this school campus? There's a war between this fraternity of morons and the real academics here, right? What's going on here? There's a couple of guys who are orphans, and they think that they have been, given a challenge by God to bring the blues to the world, right?
Right.
That's exactly what he brings to this here. Who are these two fucking guys? We don't know. All we know is that they've decided to backpack through Europe, and they need to make sure that they get to where was it? Italy, right? They need to get to Italy because that's where they're gonna meet up with the girls.
Yeah,
that is classic John Landis, right? We're on a mission from God. What's our mission? Not the same as the other movie,
right?
But it is a mission nonetheless, right? We find out along the way who these guys are, but we need to care about David. We need a reason to care about David because we have no reason to care about David when this movie starts. We just know that he's a guy who could be us. He's a guy who could be our friends. That's it. That's all we know about him, right? But making him personable and then giving him a backstory that unfolds little by little, giving him that romantic connection between him and I always forget her name. Jenny Agutter's character, Nurse Price, Alex, giving him that emotional connection there humanizes him, makes him someone who it's like, oh shit, I want him to live so that can be something that's explored. Giving him a family and letting us explore that family through flashbacks, through phone calls. Does it slow down the movie? Yes, but it also makes us care more, and it ramps up that tension. When he makes that phone call in the phone booth, that is a gut-wrenching scene. He knows that he's not going to survive when he makes that phone call. That's a goodbye.
Yeah.
That's a goodbye. That's a farewell. That's a, hey, I'm not going to see you later, but I want you to know that I love you, right? I love that scene. It's a gut-wrenching scene. When he's transforming, you said the grabbing the head scene. Dude, David Naughton does such a good job of letting us know I am in utter turmoil right now. The physical thing hurts. We get that. It's the realization of everything that Jack's been telling him.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I am this. And I had an opportunity to kill myself and end it, and I didn't. Of course, I'm grateful that he doesn't, because it gives us this whole movie, right? It gives us the deterioration of Jack. It gives us, dude, that scene in the porno theater.
And if you needed more proof if you needed more proof of the fact that John Landis isn't that far from his roots with this movie, it's like, here's a critical scene in a porno theater where we're going to show you some of the porn sometimes.
Occasionally. Yeah. I love that scene. Not for the porn.
But Naughty Nina's not bad.
No. I'm not saying it's not for the porn. I'm just saying that to see the people that he's killed the night before, all in limbo, and here's Jack, who he abandoned, right? Because I love the fact that, like, here comes the werewolf, attacks Jack, he fucking bolts, and I think that's a really real, really human reaction. You talk about like how real the dialogue is, how real like people behave in this movie. That's a real reaction.
Yeah,
that's a real reaction,
and a stark contrast to when we did, Dog Soldiers, where that was a very real reaction that you would see out of a soldier,
right?
To go fight for him. But these aren't trained military; these are just dudes backpacking. So yeah, I think that's a very real reaction.
Yeah, and I love that at some point he realizes, he was like, "Oh shit, Jack," and then he runs back, and he doesn't want to go back. Like the speed at which he's running back is totally different. The gait that he's using, like, it's totally different. It's a kid who's running back home because he knows that he's about to miss curfew.
Right.
Versus a kid who's running for the ice cream truck. It's very similar.
Right.
But we all know this. We all know the difference between these runs, and it's so real. So to see Jack deteriorating this whole time, Jack who doesn't really hold it against him, Jack was just like, bro, just fucking off yourself so that I can be free of this, so that these people can be free of this, so there's no more of this. It's there's a real difficult balancing act that has to be done when you're deciding to pay homage to classics and do something new. And that introduction of the soul being in limbo when a werewolf kills you, that's an amazing addition. I don't think any other movie really goes into that. No movie takes that and runs with it. This is really unique to An American Werewolf in London. I love the idea where it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? A silver bullet? No, man, just fucking kill the thing.
Yeah, just kill it.
Yeah, and that's something that to give credit to another werewolf movie that we often shit on, Twilight does something similar in the not the sparkly thing, but it's like, why does a vampire need to have fangs? Just bite the fucking thing. You know, if I bite you, you bleed,
Yeah.
I will give Stephanie Meyer credit for that. I really do kind of like that, where it's like, man, Daniel, if I bite you, you're gonna bleed. And if I bite you in your neck, you're gonna bleed a lot.
Yes.
So I really love everything that's done in this movie. And I said at the top that this is one of my favorite horror movies. There's never going to be anything I say about this movie that's negative.
Right.
And you mentioned slow pace. Yeah, I'm going to rationalize that fucking thing. And it could be that I'm biased. I am saying right now, I am biased.
Fair.
But I also think that I'm right. I think that objectively, the pacing of this movie makes the movie better. I think that this movie, if it were constantly on 11, if it was all werewolf transformation and biting heads off and all of that stuff, becomes less of a movie.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like I said, it was it was interesting because when it first ended, my roommate was like, I don't know how I feel about that one. I was like, yeah, you got to sit with this one. Like, you've got to decide if it worked for you or not. Like, you can't make a snap decision about whether or not you like this movie, because one way or the other, if you immediately make a decision about this movie, you're going to be wrong. And 24 hours later, you're going to feel different. And that was what I was telling him. I was like, and like I said at the top, definitely not for everybody. There are going to be people that this just doesn't sell with. I personally, I like it. I do really like the idea that, I mean, if it's just a dude that turns into a wolf, why do we need something special to kill it? Like, what's a silver bullet going to do to its heart that just, a shell full of buckshot ain't going to do? You know,
Right.
like, you know, I really like that. There are occasions where you walk back the mythology for the betterment of something. There are times when you take a step back and you go, okay, but we're bringing this to a newer, fresher audience. And, you know, things have changed since the werewolf mythology was first established. There was a time where you needed to create this idea of having to have a silver bullet or something like that, possibly because the guys who were writing these myths were also selling shit made of silver. You know, there's always that idea that there's a reason it was written like that. It also, at the time, you know, bullets weren't the easiest thing, or, you know, knives. Yeah, they were around, but, you know, it was like, okay, so anybody could kill a werewolf. And so that's classic storyteller stuff, right? You're telling the story and it's like, oh, it's just a wolf. I've killed a wolf before. So you got to think on your feet. Oh, but does you have a knife with a silver handle? No, then you can't kill a werewolf. So continue to listen and be horrified as we weave this tale. It's great. It's great verbal storytelling when things are established. That's how you keep people coming back when you're telling a news story. By the time that this movie comes out, we're not getting a new story. You know, like you said, there's already, you know, this American Werewolf in London movie from the 30s. You know, and so you're not telling a new story, but you need a way to keep people invested. And now, so you swing the pendulum the other way, and it's like, this thing is insanely brutal, but if you're willing to be a hero, you might have the gear that you need to take it out. And so it appeals to a different audience. It keeps people invested in a story that wasn't necessarily written exactly for them, but you create an entrance for them into this world. So I love that. I really do. If when well executed, the changing of a mythos for something can be done. Like you said, I've seen and read the first Twilight book, but I don't disagree with you about the teeth thing. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, these right here, pretty sharp. I'm pretty sure I could take a chunk out of somebody's neck if I wanted to. You know, so it's for the betterment of the story. Fine. That works for me. I'm good with all that. I really love the way that as they're evolving this, it does the classic thing where we know that he was attacked by a werewolf. We know he's going to become one, but he, you know, kind of waffles between, you know, indecision and denial and kind of accepting it, and he feels like maybe he's going crazy. And whenever you add that element, it's a slippery slope, because if you start to sell that too hard and you don't do it well, then you end up with something where people are just pissed off because they don't feel like they got the whole story. I do think that it was done very well here, because, like I said, we were well established in the fact that he was a werewolf. He was attacked by a werewolf. He was going to become one. So it does make for an interesting story to have him unsure, to have him not believe, to then, even once he does, to have his love interest be like, ha, 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 where were you last night? Naked with wolves? That's cute. Let's go to the doctor, you know? And it's just, it makes it feel more real. If a buddy of mine called me tomorrow morning and was like, hey, open the door, I'm out here, and I open it up and he's wearing a stolen woman's coat, and he's like, I woke up at the zoo this morning naked with wolves. I think I might be a werewolf. I too would be like, I think we should drink a little less. And you're probably not a werewolf, so let's laugh about this. Tell me about when you hid in the bushes and offered a kid money while you were naked. You know, I would be where Dr. Price was. I wouldn't be like, oh, this is serious shit. You're a werewolf. No, I'd be like, you're hungover now and you're misremembering, untrue truths. And so I don't doubt that you maybe killed somebody in the subway. I just doubt that you did it as a wolf. So I heard. So, we talk about how real this feels. Her reaction feels real. I also really love that aspect of so many times when you watch something about a werewolf, once they revert, they're really sluggish and they're super, just down on themselves because they know what they did. And oh, poor pitiful me, I was a werewolf last night. David comes out of it and he's like, I feel great. I'm super horny. We don't need to go to the doctor. Let's have a quickie. And I was like, okay, all right. Yeah. This man got the blood pumping last night. He's ready to go. And so, I just, again, you take these things and you twist them ever so slightly and you create a story for a new audience, which is very important when you're retelling tales that go back to, barely written folklore, that go back to word of mouth folklore, that type of stuff. There's only so many times you can make the Wolfman where you're just taking this exact, Eastern European Romani tale and trying to commit it to film. You at some point have to realize that what modern times are and what people want to see. What's beautiful about the way that Landis did was he balanced it. He didn't just make it, I recently watched Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Oh, okay.
And Bodies is it's a decent little slasher, but that slippery slope I was talking about, they were way too much like, this is for Gen Z. Listen to all this cool slang we use, and that's going too far with it. That's going too far with recreating this old story. Landis balanced it perfectly here, as he usually does with these things. Animal House has got that really good blend of touching and funny and gross and absurd
and timelessness, because it does. I feel like I still have students talk to me about Landis's movies. I teach high school, right? So I'm teaching, 16, 17-year-old, granted teenage boys. So, that's definitely more the audience, I think.
Right.
But every now and then I've got a kid who comes up to me. He's like, hey, have you ever seen this movie Animal House? Like, bro, fucking lived it. That's people are still talking about, young people are still talking about Landis's movies. And this has that quality where it's like, this feels timeless. It was made in the 80s as an homage to things that came before and still feels fresh.
Yeah. And so he does all of that really well. And so when you sit back and you just kind of look at all of this, and I know I used that exact phrase earlier, but there's a lot to take in. There's a lot of different things here. And while we're on the subject of John Landis, I do need to make a retraction from a couple weeks ago. I mentioned that John Landis' son, Max Landis, wrote World War Z and Zombie Survival Guide. No, that is Mel Brooks' son, Max Brooks. Max Landis makes films, write comic books, and made a YouTube film called Wrestling Isn't Wrestling that was incredible. So I did confuse Max Brooks and Max Landis a couple weeks ago. Thank you, Hunniger, for pointing that out to me by sending me a picture of your copy of Zombie Survival Guide. So there we go. My retraction.
Nice. I think we can continue to go on and on about this story and about all of the different moving parts here, because there really are very many. As simple as this movie is, I think you can go on and on about it. But we've mentioned a couple different people here, characters, right? So I think we should just move into our character section. So in a section that we're calling Brits and Americans, who stands out to you here, Daniel?
I've got to go with where my heart is telling me to go here first, and that's Griffin Dunn as Jack.
Mhm.
And what's amazing about Griffin Dunn as Jack is he is not in the movie a lot, but
No.
every scene he's in is so pivotal. And he's so good at this that even by the time we reach the point where Jack is just portrayed by a puppet with Griffin Dunn's voice, it's still such an important part of the movie that you don't care that it's, obviously a puppet. And what's interesting is when you watch this movie, you look at Griffin Dunn, and he's one of those guys who is one of those guys. You're just like, I know that guy from somewhere. And then you go pull up his massive IMDb, and you're going to pinpoint it eventually where you know him from. The guy has done a ton of stuff, tons of, like bit part and character acting, but he's so good in this. When you talk about the humor of this, from the very jump, when you talk about how real it feels when he's interacting with David, they really seem like they were good friends. From the very beginning, he's telling that story about the girl that loves him too much to put out. That's why he's got to get there, right? He's got to show her that he's worthy of that sweet poo nanny, and so but he's telling this story, and I love that he's laughing when he's telling it. He's laughing at how ridiculous this whole thing is, because I'm that guy. I'm that guy that laughs at my own stories when I'm telling them, and has to pause and be like, hold on, and recompose myself, because I'm cracking up, just hoping you are, but not really caring, because hearing it out loud is great for me again. And I love that that's the type of guy he is. And then the next time we see him, he's slashed up. The special effects are sick, and he's immediately telling his best friend, look, everything's fucked right now, but you can fix it. Kill yourself. But not in a internet troll kill yourself way, in a I love you. You mean the world to me, and I'm trying to save you. Kill yourself. Which is a bizarre message, and I hope we didn't.
It's dark.
Yeah, I hope we didn't just get flagged on Facebook on our live stream here. I'll know if it goes dark in a second. But it's a very dark thing to comprehend. The idea that you would have a friend that tells you how much they love, respect you, and want the best for you, and that's the only way that there's a positive outcome here. That moment, this movie takes a really fucking wicked turn. And then the next time you see him, he's back on that horse. And he's like, this is what you got to do, man. It's the only way. The werewolf line ends with you. End it. You can save yourself and countless others. And you're just right back. And the weight of that just sits so hard on your chest. And Griffin Dunn does such an amazing job delivering that as a guy who we initially saw just telling the story about a girl. And it's just, it's incredible. Like you said, when they meet when they're in the porno theater, and it's not just him anymore. Now it's all 6 of the people that he killed the night before. And they don't have any love for David. So they're like, yeah, dude, poison, knife, jump in front of a tube. I don't care. Just make it happen. And he's sticking up for him. He's like, no, quit. That's going to hurt. No, don't do that. That, if you choke to death, it's going to hurt. It's going to suck. He's still sitting in Congress with 6 people that his best friend just murdered. I mean, body's still warm, murdered. He's still taking up for his boy and looking out for him, regardless of how wild the advice that he's giving him is. It's just amazing that Jack is such a memorable character for not just because of the amazing special effects that we watch happen every time we see Jack, but he's almost this really dark Jiminy Cricket for David.
Oh my God, yes, that's exactly it.
No one else is hearing him. Nobody else is seeing him, but he's there. He's always there. He's always in the forefront of David's mind. Everything he says, never just in one ear and out the other. David takes everything he says to heart. And that character of Jack just carries an incredible weight towards making this movie, like you said earlier, horrifying, to making it dark. But then at the same time is funny. He's funny, like when he's just a jaw and basically a skeleton held by a little bit. He's like, yeah, it sucks. It hurts. I hurt all the time. I'd love to not do this for eternity. And you could make that happen if you really loved me, if you were my boy. It's everything he delivers is quintessential to the story, is very important to making it scary, but is also delivered in a way that always feels real and like he loves this guy.
I'm so glad that this is the first person that you mentioned. For years, I've thought that the standout performance here, Naughton obviously is the star of this, but I feel like the standout performance really is Griffin Dunne. Because there is no movie without him.
Right.
As great as Naughton is, if he doesn't have Jack to center him, to ground him, to always bring him back to hey, listen, Nurse Price is great. I love that you're loving your life. However, you're a ticking time bomb, and I need to be fixed. Get me out of limbo. Only you can do this. Only you can prevent forest fires, man. He becomes a Smokey the Bear that doesn't go away when you turn the TV off.
Yeah.
And I love his performance because there's always love there. Like you said, there's always love there. Every single line, including him demanding that he commit suicide, is coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
Which is,
it's unfathomable.
Almost it's unfathomable. Like I'm saying this and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But it's a kindness.
Yeah.
Because death is preferable to being a werewolf.
Yes.
Not only because of the pain that he's going to feel every time he transforms, but the pain that he's going to feel from guilt. Because he knows David. He knows David's heart. It's impossible for him to live with this guilt. And ultimately, it is the guilt that does him in.
Yeah.
So, that is for me the standout performance here. Like, there is no bad performance here, but if there is one, I'm like, yeah, man, that's the one. It's Griffin Dunne. So, who I will mention first then is Jenny Agutter. And you and I talked about Jenny Agutter before the show started. I have had a crush on Jenny Agutter for just about as long as my memory goes back. I can't think of a time in which I wasn't in love with Jenny Agutter.
From watching Logan's Run.
Yeah. I was talking about I was talking about Logan's Run with someone from work just this week. She is amazing. She's amazing because she manages to be caring, sexy, smart, loving, firm, stern, all at the same time. And that is really difficult to do. She's playing the familiar love interest that we've seen in countless horror movies. Not just horror movies, any movie. But she's doing it in a stronger way. And I love that final scene when she's pleading with David.
Yes.
Everyone knows this is going to fail. You're talking to a wolf right now. There's no way that this thing is listening to you. There's no way that this thing is understanding you if it can hear you. I like to think that there is a little bit of David there. I like to think that David is locked somewhere in there. And it's why that scene always hurts so much.
Yeah.
Because she hurts so much. She never looks away when he gets shot.
Right.
She sees the transformation. No one else sees it. And in just about every werewolf movie that I can think of, the loved one never sees the transformation.
Right.
Because the camera pans away. We don't really see what happens. They're looking away. They look back, right? Like even Claude Rains, if my memory is serving me correctly, doesn't see the transformation.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I would have to watch again to be certain, but I don't think that Claude Rains is looking at Lon Chaney Jr. as he transforms. That's a powerful thing. To see this person that you love transforming into the person that you love. And what's more is Claude Rains doesn't know who it is when he kills that werewolf. She knows who this is. She knows exactly who this is when those shots are fired. And it's for that reason that she doesn't look away. That performance of, for us, it's really easy to be like, man, but you just met this guy. She's been caring for him for weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he was out. He woke up 3 weeks after the incident. So yeah.
Yeah. So she has been caring for him, providing care for a month. And you know, as well as I do, that in any profession where you have to care for someone, and in education, I think this is true. You're told, do not get emotionally attached. It's bad for your health. There's no chance that you're not getting emotionally attached.
Right.
So very, very quickly, you love the person that you're caring for. You kind of have to.
Yeah.
And so as I am not a caregiver in that way. I am not like a healthcare professional, but I know what it's like to have to care for someone that is not your blood. And it hurts. It hurts when they're gone. It hurts when they're gone because graduation sucks. It sucks to see students that I have come to care for leave. And it hurts even more when I have to attend their funerals. And so I know that she is feeling something there, and it's a masterclass in acting. And it's hard to talk about that in a horror movie because you don't typically hear that about a horror movie, even less about a horror comedy. She is just spectacular.
Yeah, I love the scene when they first get to her apartment and she's kind of giving him the tour and she's laughing about how small her place is, with him, and there's a real genuine connection there. And then there's that scene where she just lays it all out. She's like, I've had 7 lovers, 4 of them were one night stands, and I don't know what I'm getting at here, but do you want to watch some television while I take a shower? And then, just like walks off and just leaves the door wide open. It's like, well played, ma'am. That was, that was slick. That was really good. Not helpless babe in the woods, just a girl who knew what she wanted, wasn't 100% exactly where everything was going to go, and just absolutely played the shit out of the hand she was dealt. And she dominated that scene. It was so good. She did a really good job of commanding when she was speaking, but when she wasn't never fading into the background. You know, she was if she was present, she was present. You knew she was there. But man, and I know you talked about it already, but that scene where she's trying to rationalize with the wolf at the end, and it's just the sheer pain. She knows exactly what he's done at this point. She knows that there were the 6 people killed the night before. She knows where he's been with it.
There's no going back.
Right. She knows everything that's happened. That there's no reset button to this. But she never just tries to flush the whole thing, you know, to be like, oh yeah, kill this beast. If
you live, I'm okay.
Right. Yeah.
If you live, I'm okay. Yeah.
And it was just, it was so powerful. It was, and like, you're right. It's one of those types of scenes that we don't get a lot in horror movies, where you're just ripped apart by a performance by somebody who is trying to see the upside, the bright side to something in a space where a bright side doesn't really exist. There's only one way this ends. Well, no, I take it back. There's 2 ways. He dies or you die. Like, you're looking at a werewolf. There's only 2 ways this ends, and neither of them is both of you live. She knew that. She knew that in that moment, but still wasn't willing to accept it. And all of that came through in that amazing little monologue that she gave there.
Yeah.
One other character that I'm going to mention, John Woodvine as Dr. Hirsch.
So good. I'm glad you mentioned that. Was going to be my next one.
Dude, he was so funny. Like, we talk about how funny this movie is, and yeah, he eventually gets serious once he kind of puts all the pieces together. But once he's leading up to putting all the pieces together, he's so damn funny. Like, he was just, I was laughing. His scene in the pub when, like, he walks in, I forget what he orders initially. She's like, nope. He's like, all right, then give me a baby Guinness, you know? And he like pours it, and he's just kind of staring down all the bar regulars and sits down and starts talking chess with the guy. The whole thing was, it came off as really funny, but he pulled it off. Like we've said on this show multiple times, you say all the time, the Brits do comedy better. It wasn't even a comedic scene, but it was just, he was so good at delivering everything that was there. You got some comedy out of it. And I really just enjoyed watching him put it all together, watching him go from funny to serious to maybe I can fix him, you know, all of these things that he ran through. Again, character that we did not get a ton of screen time with, but that when we did, delivered exactly what he had to do.
He is the kind of character that I think of as, and I use this as a positive thing, offensively British.
Yes.
He's so British that you have to ask yourself, is he really British? You know, like, is this an American pretending to be a Brit? You know, like it's almost a caricature, because it reminds you of the sorts of characters that you would see in like Monty Python skits.
Right.
The thing is that Monty Python is based on things that actually, like, just like any other like comedy group, they're doing stuff that they know. Like, it is British to do this, you know, like it is historical. The keep calm and carry on, right? That is classic Britain, you know, stiff upper lip. Yes. You know, and when you meet someone that is, you know, that sort of Brit, you realize, like, that's not a cartoon. That's not just in the movies. Like, they really are that cool.
Yeah.
All the goddamn time, you know? And like, not everyone can be that cool, you know, it's just by degrees, of course. But when you are that stone cold cool, you know, like, that is, I saw it wasn't an interview. I don't know what the fuck it was. It was on Instagram. It was, John Cleese talking about the dumber you are, the better you think you are at stuff. Right. And he starts talking about a friend that he has at MIT or Harvard or something. And I'm like, Durning. Right. I'm like, that's the name of the fucking effect. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
Like, so you're just being like blasé, so casual about like, yes, Dr. Dunning. Like, no, man, like be fucking cool about it. Like, the guy who named the fucking thing, who like invented, like, him, like you don't have to be that cool, but you fucking are. That's him, man. Dr. Hirsch is in a cast of all Brits except for those two fuckers. He's the most British of all.
Yeah,
he's so goddamn cool, man. I want to be that cool. I know I can't be that cool.
Right. Yeah. He like I said, every time he was there, he just killed. But there is somebody else that we got to get to. And so I'm going to give you a chance to talk about him first. And so in our werewolf section that we're calling Harry Howlers, we need to talk about the wolf that we're presented here, be it David Kessler, be it the wolf. We get, this is our chance to talk about both of them. So take us through David Naughton's werewolf and his character is David Nessler.
Okay, so very similar to Lon Chaney Jr., I think he does a incredible job of giving us conflicted. The human side of the werewolf is outstanding.
Yes.
David Naughton can fucking act. He's great at being funny. He's great at being scared. He's great at being romantic because that scene that you talk about where she's like, and this is the bathroom and this is the closet. And like, it is awkward. It is awkward. It's the, but it's still funny, but it's awkward, but it's realistic, right? Think about how many times you were like, okay, I gotta seal the deal, but I don't know how.
Yeah, can't find the clothes.
We've all been there where it's like, okay, I think that the other party wants this. I know I want this. How do I make sure without being an asshole, right? And both of them are like right there, right? He manages to be the perfect human side of the werewolf, which is so human.
Yeah.
He is so easy to fall in love with. Like, you understand exactly why Alex falls in love with him.
Yeah.
Like, and it is love. It 100%. I think it's more than lust, because there's got to be a reason why they keep coming back to each other. Like, he could have very easily just been like, holy shit, I'm a fucking werewolf. I killed a bunch of people. I'm not going back to this house. I got to figure my shit. No, he came back to her. She centered him. As a werewolf, I think there will never, it's not as iconic. I'm gonna be honest here. Not as iconic as Wolfman. But I don't think there will ever be another werewolf that is more brutal.
Yes.
More real, but also more commanding, because I look at this werewolf's eyes and I see David. I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know how it is, but I see that there's a little bit of understanding there. It's animatronic. They didn't use a real, a real wolf, obviously, because its design is not actually a wolf. It's some sort of feral monster thing. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. The other aspect of the werewolf that this movie does that no other movie does is the nightmare part of the werewolf, because we see that outward conflict in every other werewolf movie, but we actually get inside of David's head and see the werewolf taking over. And Those nightmare sequences where he's looking at himself, the nightmare sequences where he's seeing the Nazi werewolves, dude. Nazi werewolves have been something that have haunted me since as far back as I can remember.
Werewolf woman of the SS, man.
Yes, dude. Like I always talk about how like my litmus test for whether something is a cool character or not is whether I want to buy the action figure. I've been wanting werewolf Nazi action figures for I don't know. There's a company who finally put it out. I bought the same fucking action figure 4 times so I can swap the heads on all of them and have them all. I have a problem. I know I have a problem. I know I know it's not okay. I am seeing my therapist about this. But my God, the werewolf is ever present. Like literally from the moment the movie starts, when the truck driver tells him, stay on the road.
Yeah.
Stay off of the moors. Bam, right there, werewolf is present. Because we know we're watching a werewolf movie. We don't have to wait to see the pentagram. We don't have to wait to see the candles burning. We don't have to wait to see all of the townsfolk turn and do the very, very hammer, everything is silent as the stranger comes into town sort of thing. It is the pinnacle of werewolf, will never be topped. All right. Mark my words. 10/28 on December the 4th, the year 2024. There will never be another werewolf that is better than this.
Yeah. No, the weight of the werewolf is always being there. I mentioned earlier about, those changes to the mythos, that idea that even when it's not a full moon, when he first wakes up, it's a week away.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the fact that he is a werewolf, he's having these bizarre dreams. He's seeing this sequence where he sees himself in the hospital bed and he's seeing Nurse Price taking care of him, because you're immediately like, okay, so there's this, he's now 2 things, right? He's 2 people. Mm-hmm. He's 2 characters now. Is incredible. But man, when you talk about how horrifying this wolf is, the actual wolf, the animatronic one we get at the end, yeah, it's some sort of weird beast thing, that's fine. But going back to the special effects again, man, when he if we're kind of covering it up if you're watching us live, but those early transformations with just the wicked ass teeth and the big yellow eyes and the skin going pale. When his hand, it starts to stretch the first time, it stretches and grows, and you're like, ugh. But then the second time, when the claws split his fingernails to come down, and it's this whole horrible thing. It's so good. And then I mentioned at the top, one of the things I love about this is I love during his 6-body spree on the first night of the full moon, we get those POV shots, and you get those, the guy who's on the tube, if you will, the metro, the subway. He, we get the clips of him just kind of walking, and then the POVs of him getting hunted. We get that full blown idea of it being a hunt, and the back and forth that we're getting with the way that shot, where we're put directly behind the werewolf's eyes. And I think that what that does is I think that lends some credence to what you're saying about David being there, because when we get that POV shot of the werewolf, we are looking through the werewolf's eyes, completely unable to control what the werewolf is about to do. We are merely witnesses in this moment. And by creating that shot, I think that it does throw some bank on what you're saying about David being in there, because now you get put into this frame of mind where that's what David's living. He's looking through this wolf's eyes. He's seeing it all happen. but he can't control it. He's locked away in there.
We're in there with him.
Right. And we're in there with him. We're looking. We know what's going to happen. But no matter how much I scream at the TV, it's going to happen. And I think that shot really puts a lot on your idea there. And also just, again, the emotion that gets wrapped up in this whole damn thing. This is absolutely one of the most incredible werewolves for a very different way. You know, what's been cool is, you know, we've gotten through 3 werewolf movies here, or 3 werewolf movies as we've done Werewolf Month, and 4 we both watched Ginger Snaps, just didn't get to record. Right. So we've watched 4, and we've gotten 4 very, very different werewolves. We have gotten 4 extremely different characters that are the same, but in no way the same. And that's, again, that's what makes taking something classic like this old Romani folktale and finding a way to make it feel fresh. That's what makes it so good. I think that this is the best of the 4 werewolves because of everything that we've talked about. Of the 4 that we've done here, I do think that actually that this is the best werewolf that we've gotten. I agree with you. I don't know that it can be touched. I think that it can be altered. I think that it can be messed with. But I don't know that anybody, because even if you made one that was within, you know, just an eyelash of being this good, it would just be this. So it would still just be a facsimile of what we've got here already, right? A copy.
And how much money would you need to spend to make it as good as it was in 1981?
Right. Yeah.
And with what technology we have today, would it be as impressive? Now, of course, that has nothing to do with the movie itself.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter how much money you spend. It doesn't matter what people think about it. Like if it is as good, great. But we can't live outside of the outside world.
Right.
And nothing will ever touch it for that reason.
I think you're 100% correct, man. I think that this was an amazing one to end on. I think that this is the best werewolf that there has been. And so, you know, this one's great. And so on that note, I think that it's time that we rate this thing. So
yeah.
If you are new to the show, if you just need a quick refresher, here at Shiver, we only rate a movie against itself. We have mentioned plenty of Landis's other movies, all the other werewolf movies that we've done, but we're just looking at what American Werewolf in London gave us here. So for each movie, we create a unique rating system. And for this one, there's a really iconic image delivered really early in this movie. And it's that sign hanging in front of the pub, the slaughtered lamb. So Dave, out of a possible 5 slaughtered lambs, what do you give American Werewolf in London?
This will probably come as a surprise to no one, but this is a gold star for me. This is 6 slaughtered lambs. There is perfect, and then there is perfect. And this movie, in my estimation, not so humble, I'm super full of myself. This movie's just fucking perfect. Like it is impossible for something to be better than this in my eyes. And can we just stop for a second and talk about how I'm pretty sure that this monster has been the strongest of all the monsters we've done.
God, yeah.
We've done a lot of different monsters, and I don't think any single month did we have as consistent and strong a representation as we did for the fucking werewolf.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the werewolf. We picked some good ones. We laid it out there with Werewolf Month.
Yeah. So wow, man. I mean, for me, I've gone on and on about this movie. I'm not going to continue to do so, but I will quite literally fight you if you disagree. That you don't have to think it's 6 is fine. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions, But if you, a listener, think that I am just wrong, that this is not good, that there are already better werewolves, better werewolf effects, you name the time, you name the place, I'll meet you. We don't got to wear gloves or nothing. All right. And we will have some words.
Yeah. Look, man, I'm almost there with you, right? This is definitely a 5 out of 5 Slaughtered Lambs for me. This movie, like I said, you've got to sit with this one. It's not for everybody. I would agree with you that it would be absurd to say that it's not good, but I can absolutely understand where people aren't going to think it's as perfect as we do. But I think that this movie successfully delivers just everything you could possibly want out of a movie. I think that it gave us just everything we've talked about. You know, I don't need to list it off all again. It gave us everything. That's why we were able to sit here and wax about it like we have. This movie is great. It has stood the test of time. What, this thing's 43 years old now, and still watching it and thinking, yep, still every bit as good. It is a perfect movie. It absolutely is. So it is 5 out of 5 Slaughtered Lambs.
Nice. Well, that gives us 5.5 Slaughtered Lambs, which if you're thinking about it, that means that one of them lambs had an exceptionally large head, because that's what comes off is the head. Right. So if the head was half the fucking body, I mean, that's insane. what a big brain lamb. So there you have it. 5.5 Slaughtered Lambs for the most perfect of werewolf movies, An American Werewolf in London.
And so if you've enjoyed listening to us today, make sure you head over to shiverpod.com, where you can find links to all of our social media outlets. We are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, all at ShiverPod. To everybody who's hung around and watched us live today, we greatly appreciate you. To all of our listeners, shout out to talented Baby Ripley over on Instagram, who we were her number 2 most listened to podcast on her Spotify Wrap today.
Hey,
so,
nice.
We were up
Thank
there
you.
we were up there with Time Suck by Dan Cummins. So that was her number 1.
Hey,
we were her number 2. So we're in good company there. So thank you so much for that. If we're on anybody else's, share it with us. We'd love to post it up and let everybody know. We appreciate each and every one of you guys so much. We are going to wrap up the Year of the Monster with something that's going to keep us in the spirit, right? With the month of December is about spirits, whether it be the Holy Spirit or the spirit of teaching rich people that they suck ass. But we're going to be all about filling people's lives with a brand new spirit, as we will be bringing you demonic possession movies to wrap up the Year of the Monster. Do keep an eye out on all of our social media outlets. We know the holidays are coming. Everybody's got stuff going on. Dave and I do as well. So we might have some different recording days, some things like that. We do know that Christmas is an actual Wednesday. So we're going to be all over the place, but we are going to try to not let December slip through our fingers, as we've got some great ideas for what we should be doing for possession movies, including ending this year with something that will be familiar, but we will make it brand new again. So keep an eye out.
Absolutely. So on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fright you very much.